قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Respected Muslim brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the previous part, we covered Umar ibn Sa'ad and Ash-Shamr ibn al-Jawshan. We covered how Umar had been appointed as the commander of the army and tasked with fighting al-Husayn. We covered how Ash-Shamr had persuaded Ibn Ziyad to make sure that al-Husayn is not given a choice unless it is submission or death, and how he went to Umar ibn Sa'ad and essentially became the second in command. We already know that al-Hurr ibn Yazid is there. Today we will be continuing the narrative. As we last left off, we were about the 7th or 8th of Muharram. And so now we'll be going over the events of the 9th of Muharram, and that will lead directly into the Battle of Karbala on the 10th. But with that being said, let us go ahead and get started. So, chronologically, the next event we wish to go over is that Umar ibn Sa'ad, before he began to make preparations to attack al-Husayn and his camp, he allowed Ash-Shamr, la'inahullah, to try to convince al-Abbas ibn Ali and his brothers, salamullahi alayhim, to abandon the Imam and to join Ibn Sa'ad's army. And so he called out for them, and they went out and met him. And so al-Abbas and his brothers cursed Ash-Shamr and insulted him for suggesting such a thing. And this we covered in more detail in the chapter on Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, salamullahi alayh. Al-Tabari reports, in Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 19, page 114, he reports the following. He reports that Umar ibn Sa'ad now began to prepare for immediate battle on the evening of the 9th of Muharram. Al-Husayn was sitting in front of his tent when his brother al-Abbas came to him, salamullahi alayhi, and informed him that the enemy was advancing. So he asked al-Abbas to inquire about the cause of change in their attitude. They told him that an order of the governor had arrived, and they were to attack unless al-Husayn and his followers submitted to his authority. Al-Husayn asked for a delay until the next morning so that they could decide on the option. So Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'inahullah, consulted his commanders. Umar ibn Sa'ad asked, "Shamr, what do you think?" And Shamr replied, "What do you think yourself? You are the general and the decision is yours." So Umar replied, "I wish that I wasn't." Then he looked at the others and asked, "What do you think?" Amr ibn al-Hajjaj al-Zubaydi, la'inahullah, exclaimed, "Glory be to Allah. If they were from the Daylam," as we covered in the last video, a group of a non-Arab, non-Muslim group, if they were from the Daylamites and they asked you for this postponement, you would have to grant it to them. Qais ibn al-Ash'ath urged, "Yes, give them what they demand, then by my life, let morning be the time for you to fight." Umar ibn Sa'ad said, "By Allah, even if I knew that they would do that, I would not have postponed the fight tonight." When al-Abbas salamullahi alayhi brought back to al-Husayn the proposal of Umar ibn Sa'ad, al-Husayn alayhi salam said, "Go back to them. If you can, delay them until the morning and keep them away from us during this evening. Then perhaps we may be able to pray to our Lord during the night, to call upon him and seek his forgiveness. He knows that I have always loved his prayer, the recitation of his book, making invocations to him, and seeking his forgiveness." Now we are going to go over the dialogue that some of the dialogues that occurred between Abu Abdullah al-Husayn salamullahi alayh and between the men in his camp that night. So it is reported in Kitab Tarikh al-Tabari in volume 19, page 113 to 117. And this is reported on the authority of Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn. We have a few different narratives. We have the report of Ali ibn al-Husayn, we have the report of al-Dhahhak ibn Qais al-Mashriqi, we have a report from Imam al-Sadiq, and we have a report from Ibn Sa'ad. So we will go over all of these inshallah. So the first report from Imam al-Sajjad, salamullahi alayhi, he says, "I went to hear what he would say to them, even though at that time I was sick." So Imam al-Sajjad, salamullahi alayhi, as many of you know, he was very, very ill. He seems to have had a fever during the Battle of Karbala, and that is why he did not participate, and that is why his life was spared. And so he says, "I heard my father saying to his followers, I glorify Allah, the Blessed and the Exalted, with the most perfect glorification, and I praise Him in happiness and misfortune. O Allah, I praise you for blessing us with prophethood, teaching us the Quran, and making us understand the religion. You have given us ears, eyes, and hearts. You have not made us to be among the polytheists. I know of no followers more fitting and more virtuous than my followers, nor any Ahlul Bayt more pious and more caring about family relationships than my family. May Allah reward you well on my behalf. Indeed, I think that our final day will come tomorrow through these enemies. I have thought about you. All go away with the absolution for your oath, for there will be no obligation on you from me. This is a night that will cover you with its darkness. Use it as a camel to ride away through it. So Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayhi, we see here that he is essentially telling his followers, these people want me, you are free to go. This night is a camel, use it to escape. Another report comes from al-Dhahhak ibn Qais al-Mashriqi. Dhahhak ibn Qais is someone who joined Abu Abdullah and witnessed much of the battle, but then towards the end, he ran away. He abandoned Imam al-Husayn and ran. But his reports survive. So Malik ibn Nadhr al-Arbahi, and he says that Malik ibn Nadhr al-Arbahi and I went to al-Husayn. We greeted him and we sat down with him. He returned our greetings and welcomed us. He asked us why we had come to him, and we answered, we have come to you to greet you, to ask Allah's safety for you, to establish a relationship with you, and to give you news of the people. We tell you that they have determined to fight you, so reconsider your situation. He replied, Imam al-Husayn replied, Allah is sufficient for me. How excellent a guardian he is. So we kept his pledge. We greeted him and we prayed to Allah for him. But then he asked, what is stopping you from helping me? Malik ibn Nadhr said, I have debts and a family. I said, Dhahhak ibn Qais al-Mashriqi, I also have debts and a family, but if you would give me your permission to go when I do not see any other fighter, I will fight for you as long as it is of benefit to you and protects you. So Imam al-Husayn said, you have my permission, so I stayed with him. At night, al-Husayn said, and now Dhahhak's narrative corroborates al-Imam al-Sajjad's. He says, that night al-Husayn said, this night will give you cover with its darkness. Use it as a camel to ride away through it. Every one of you should take the hand of a man from my family, then scatter in your lands of the Sawad and your towns until Allah relieves you. The people only want me. If they find me, they will cease searching for anyone else. So, I want to point out something here. Imam al-Husayn, earlier we saw that he tells Ibn Abbas, I will not endanger the people of the Haram. I will not endanger the people of Medina. Now we see that the few companions he has left, even them, he is not willing to lay down their lives. It says, any man who wishes to run, who wishes to go, who wishes to save his life is free to go. These people want only me. Correct? The narration continues, the tradition continues. His brothers and his sons, and the sons of his brother, and the two sons of Abdullah ibn Ja'far said, why would we do that? Is it in order to remain alive after you? May Allah never see us do that. And he reports that Al-Abbas ibn Ali was the first of them to make this declaration. Then they declared this or something like it. Al-Husayn alayhi salam then turned to his relatives, the sons of Aqil, and said, sons of Aqil, by losing Muslim, enough of your family has been killed, so go away as I have permitted you. They replied, what would the people say? They would say that we have deserted our sheikh, our leader, our cousins, and the best of uncles, that we had not shot any arrows beside him, that we had not thrust any spears alongside them, that we had not struck any swords alongside them, and that we do not know what they did. No, by Allah, we will not do that. Rather, we will offer for your safety our lives, property, and families. We will fight with you until we reach your destination. How abominable is life after you. Then Muslim ibn Awsaja, salamullahi alayhi al-Asadi, arose and spoke. How could we leave you alone? How should we excuse ourselves before Allah concerning doing our duty to you? By Allah, not before I thrust with my spear until I break it in their chests. Not before I strike them with my sword as long as its hilt is in my hand, I will not leave you. If I have no weapon to fight them with, I will throw stones at them to defend you until I die with you. Then a man by the name of Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi Allah Ta'ala said, by Allah, we will never leave you until Allah knows that we have upheld the honor. And then Zuhair ibn al-Qayyim spoke up. And Zuhair said, by Allah, I would prefer to be killed and then recalled to life, and then be killed 1,000 times in this manner, and that through this death I should protect your life and the lives of these young men of your family. All his followers spoke in a similar vein, one after the other. And they said, by Allah, we will not leave you. Rather, our lives will be sacrificed for you. We will protect you with our necks, our heads, and our hands. If we are killed, we will have fulfilled and accomplished what we promised. Imam al-Sadiq salamullah alayhi, and this comes to us by way of Kitab al-Kafi, by Thiqat al-Islam al-Kulayni rahmatullahi alayhi. He reports the following. He reports that Imam al-Sadiq said, it was the 9th day when al-Husayn and his companions, may Allah be pleased with them, were surrounded in Karbala. The cavalry of the people of the Levant gathered against him, led by Umar ibn Sa'ad, and rejoiced with Ibn Marjan. They were numerous and they overwhelmed al-Husayn alayhi salam and his companions. They were certain that no helper would come to al-Husayn, and the people of Iraq would not provide assistance to him. I would sacrifice my father for the disadvantaged and the lonely. And the Arabic here is very powerful. He says, بِأَبِي الْمُسْتَضْعَفُ الْغَرِيبُ. So he describes Imam al-Husayn as mustad'af, as being disadvantaged in a state of weakness, al-gharib, the lonely one. Correct? So Ibn Sa'ad further reports something else that I wanted to include. This was not found in Tabari's account, which is why I wanted to mention this. It's reported in his Kitab al-Tabaqat in volume 6, page 437. He reports the following. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi gathered his companions on the night of Ashura, which was the night of Friday. He praised Allah, extolled him, and mentioned the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the honor Allah had bestowed upon him through prophethood and the blessings he had granted to his ummah. Then he said, I do not think that the people will refrain from fighting you tomorrow. I have given you all permission, so you are free to go. This night has darkened, so whoever has strength among you, let him take one of the men of my family with him and disperse in the darkness until Allah brings about his decree or a command from himself, and they will become remorseful for what they have concealed within themselves. And this is a reference to an ayah in the Quran. It's ayah 52 of Surah al-Ma'idah. The report continues. Imam al-Husayn said, for they only seek me, and if they find me, they will not pursue you. So his family said, may Allah not keep us alive after you. By Allah, we will not leave you until we have met the same fate as you. His companions all said the same. He then said, may Allah reward you with paradise for your intentions. Ibn Sa'ad also reported from Abu al-Jahha, from his father, that a man from the Ansar came to al-Husayn and said, I have a debt. And so al-Husayn replied, no one with a debt should fight with me. So we see here that Imam al-Husayn is almost looking for any excuse to save these people, to give them a chance to leave. He narrates with another chain to Muhammad ibn Bishr al-Hadrami, to al-Aswad ibn Qais al-Abdi, that it was said to Muhammad ibn Bishr al-Hadrami, who was in the camp of Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayhi, your son has been captured at the frontier. The kuffar have captured your son. So he replied, I entrust him and myself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would not have liked for him to be captured nor to remain after him. So his father said, that is unfortunate. أحتسبه عند الله. Al-Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayhi heard this and he said to him, may Allah have mercy on you. You are absolved from your pledge to me. So go and work for the release of your son. He says, your son's been captured. Leave me and go and try to save your son. So he replied to Aba Abdullah, may the beasts eat me alive if I leave you. So al-Husayn said, give your son these garments and brocades to help him in the release of his brother. Then he gave him 5 garments worth 1,000 dinars. As in, even in this situation, Imam al-Husayn is still thinking of others. He finds out that this man is in danger of losing his son, that his son has been captured. So he tells him, you're free to go and work for the release of your son. So when he refuses, Imam al-Husayn, he says, give this to his brother, to your other son, and have him use it to try to secure his release, to try to ransom him. Furthermore, we now go over a report that regarding al-Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayhi and some of his final words to his sister Sayyidah Zainab. Al-Baladhari, al-Tabari, and Abu al-Faraj all report, and we quote the narrative of al-Tabari. They report with their chains to Ali ibn al-Husayn salamullahi alayh, who narrates that on the evening before the battle he was ill and was being nursed by his aunt Zainab alayhi salam when he heard his father recite the following poem. Time, shame on you as a friend. At the day's dawning and the sun setting, how many a companion or seeker will be a corpse? Time will not be satisfied with my substitute. The matter will rest with the mighty one, and every living creature will have to journey along the path. When Zainab heard this, she became emotional and went to her brother Husayn. She said to him, I will lose a brother. Would that death hath deprived me of life today. My mother Fatima is dead. My father Ali and my brother Al-Hasan. You are the successor of those who have passed away and the guardian of those who remain. So Al-Husayn alayhi salam said to her as he looked at her, O sister, do not let shaitan take away from your forbearance. She replied, by my father and mother, O Aba Abdullah, you have exposed yourself to death. May Allah accept my life for yours. And so, choking back his grief, with eyes full of tears, he said, if the sand grouse are left at night, they will sleep. She lamented, O my grief, your life will be violently wrenched from you, and that is more wounding to my heart and harsher to my soul. She struck at her face and bent down to her dress and tore it. Then she fell down in a faint. Al-Husayn alayhi salam got up and bathed her face with water. Then he said to her, sister, fear Allah and take comfort in the consolation of Allah. Know that the people of the earth will die and the inhabitants of the heaven will not continue to exist forever. For everything will be destroyed except for the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a reference to the Quran. Who created earth by his power, who sends forth creatures and causes them to return, who is unique and alone. My father was better than I, my mother was better than I, and my brother was better than I, and every Muslim, and I and every Muslim have an ideal model in the Apostle of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By this and the like, he tried to console her, and he said, sister, I swear to you, so keep my oath that you will not tear your clothes, nor scratch your face, nor cry out with grief and loss when I am killed. Then he brought her and he made her to sit with me. And remember that the person narrating this is Imam Sajjad. He went out with his followers and ordered them to bring their tents closer together so that the tent pegs came within the area of each other's tents, and so that if they remained among their tents, the enemy could only approach them from one side. And with that being said, we now continue to the 10th of Muharram. The sun rose the next day, which is most likely a Friday or a Saturday. And again, there's a massive historical issue here where some historians believe it was on this day, it was on that day. Sheikh al-Kulaini, I believe, he had a comment, he believed it was on a Monday. But from the sources that we've seen, the most accurate is that it was either a Friday or a Saturday. And it was the 10th of Muharram, which is a date that you all know, in the 61st year after the Hijrah. And this is reported by most of the early historians. It is reported by Tabarani, it is reported by Ibn Sa'd and Maqtal al-Talibiyin. We don't need to get too much into that. Both al-Husayn and Umar ibn Sa'd arose that morning, and they led their men in prayer, and they began to mobilize their men for battle. And so there is a report from Shaykhuna ibn Qawlawayh, rahimahullah, a very powerful report, and this line is often repeated in the majalis. It is very well known and is also reported in Kitab Ithbat al-Wasiyah. But we read in Kitab Kamil al-Ziyarat that Imam al-Husayn salamullahi alayhi, after he led his men in Salat, he turned to them and said as follows. He said to them, after he had prayed, Inna Allah qad adhana fi qatlikum fa'alaykum bis-sabr. He turned to his men and he said to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted permission for you and me to be killed today. So hold on to patience. And in some other reports, Sta'inu bis-sabri wal-jihad. So a servant of Abdul Rahman ibn Abd Rabb al-Ansari narrated that I was with my Mawla, and we went over this in the biography of Burayr. And this is a very important, very beautiful moment from the Battle of Karbala. And it is also a very sad moment. So the report says, and this is reported in Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 19, page 121, He reports that from the servant of Abdul Rahman ibn Abd Rabb al-Ansari. He reports the following. He says, I was with my Mawla, my patron, when the people were ready and began to move against al-Husayn. Al-Husayn alayhi salam ordered a tent to be erected, and he ordered musk to be dissolved in a big bowl or a dish. Then he went into that tent and was anointed with perfume. And so I want to highlight something here. If you look at the footnote, the editor of this English translation of Tariq al-Tabari notes something. It says it was common back then for Muslims when someone died, they would anoint the body with perfume. And so al-Husayn, salamullah alayh, is doing something here that we have never heard of anyone before or since him doing, is that he was anointing himself for death. So he narrates, he says, my Mawla, Abdurrahman ibn Abd Rabbah and Burayr ibn Hudayr al-Hamdani were shoulder to shoulder at the door of the tent, and they both struggled to be the first to use the perfume after Aba Abdullah. And Burayr began to joke and tease Abdurrahman. And so Abdurrahman said to him, leave me be. This is not the time for jokes. He told him to leave him alone. This was not the time for empty words. And so Burayr gave him that powerful and, dare I say, spectacular reply. He said, by Allah, my people know that I have never loved empty words, whether as a youth or as a mature man. Yet by Allah, I feel happy for what we shall soon meet. For by Allah, if all there is between us and the maidens of paradise, the Hur al-Ain, is that these people should come towards us with their swords, then I want them to come against us with their swords. So Burayr quite literally is laughing in the face of death. So now we shall go over the order of battle. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi had with him at least 32 horsemen and 40 foot soldiers. He put Zuhair ibn al-Qayn in charge of his right wing and Habib ibn Mudahir in charge of his left wing. He gave his standard to his brother Abul Fadl al-Abbas ibn Ali, and they positioned themselves with their tents at their rear. He ordered the firewood and the cane that was behind the tents to be set on fire, fearing that the enemies would attack from the rear. Al-Husayn had brought cane and firewood to lower ground behind him, which was like the bed of a stream. For some time during the night they had dug and made it like a ditch, and they threw into the ditch the firewood and cane. They did this to keep their enemies from attacking their rear, and this was of some advantage to them. And this is reported by both al-Baladri in Ansab al-Ashraf and al-Tabari, and we read it from al-Tabari in volume 19, page 120. Umar ibn Sa'd also assembled his men, and his order of battle is as follows. He put Abdullah ibn Zuhair ibn Sulaym al-Azdi in charge of the quarter of the people of Medina, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Sabr al-Ju'fi in charge of the quarter of Asad and Madhij, Qais ibn al-Ash'ath ibn Qais in charge of the quarter of Rabi'a and Kinda, and of course Al-Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi in charge of the quarter of Tamim and Hamadan. Umar also put Amr ibn al-Hajjaj al-Zubaydi in charge of his right wing and Shamr ibn al-Jawshan in charge of his left wing. He put Azra ibn Qais al-Ahmasi in charge of the cavalry and Shabath ibn Rib'i in charge of the foot soldiers. He gave the standard to the Waid, his Mawla. Shaykh al-Mufid rahmatullahi alayhi reports the following in Kitab al-Irshad in volume 2, page 96. He says that with his chain to Imam al-Sajjad salamullahi alayhi, who reported that when the cavalry came closer, his father supplicated to Allah saying, O Allah, it is you in whom I turn amid all grief, and you are my hope amid all hardship. You are my trust and provision in everything that happens to me. No matter how much the heart may seem to weaken it, trickery may seem to diminish my hope in it, the friend may seem to desert me, and the enemy may seem to rejoice in it. It comes upon me through you when I complain to you of it, and it is because of my desire for you, you alone. You have comforted me in everything and have revealed its significance to me. You are the master of all grace, the possessor of all goodness, and the ultimate resort of all desire. Al-Tabari further reports, volume 19, page 122, that when Ash-Shamr la'inahullah saw the ditch and the firewood burning in it, he rode out and called, Husayn, are you hurrying towards hellfire in this world before the day of resurrection? Shimr was masked, and Al-Husayn asked who he was. Upon learning his identity, Al-Husayn shouted back at him, son of a goat herdess, you are more worthy to be burnt by that. Muslim ibn Awsaj said to the Imam, may I offer my soul for you, son of the Apostle of Allah? Let me shoot at him. Now it is possible for my arrow would not miss. He is a sinner and one of the great tyrants. So al-Husayn replied to him, do not shoot at him, for I am unwilling to begin the fighting against them. Al-Balaghi reports, and this is in Ansab al-Ashraf, volume 3, page 401, that another one of the commanders from the Umayyad army came forward and called out to al-Husayn, rejoice, for you will face the hellfire on the day of judgment. Al-Husayn responded, no, rather rejoice in the mercy of a compassionate Lord and a responsive intercessor. Who are you? And this man revealed himself as Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath ibn Qais. And now we will conclude with one of the most well-known moments from the Battle of Karbala. And this is Imam al-Husayn's speech before the beginning of the battle. Correct? Al-Balaghi and al-Tabari, and Tabari's account is of course more complete. He reports that al-Husayn had a horse called Lahiq, or Lahiq, that belonged to his son Ali ibn al-Husayn. This is Ali al-Akbar, that he had been riding. When the people began to come closer to him, he called for his mount and he mounted. Then he called out at the top of his voice. So loud was the tone of his voice that most of the people heard. People, listen to my words and do not hurry me, so that I may remind you of the duties you have towards me, and so that I may give you reasons for my coming to you. If you accept my reasons, believe my words, and give me justice, you will become happier through that, and you will not have any cause against me. If you do not accept my reasons and give me justice of your own accord as individuals, then agree upon your affair and call your associates. Let not your affair be in darkness to you, then carry it out against me and do not delay any further. Indeed, my guardian is Allah, who sent down the book. He takes care of the righteous. When his sisters heard these words of his, they shrieked and wept, and his daughters cried and raised their voices. He sent his son al-Abbas ibn Ali, or he sent his brother al-Abbas ibn Ali and his son Ali al-Akbar, salamullahi alayhim, back to them, and he told them both, quiet them, for by my life their weeping will be excessive. When the two had gone back to quiet them, al-Husayn said, may Ibn Abbas not perish. And the narrator reports, we think he only said that when their weeping was heard, because Ibn Abbas had warned him not to take them with him. When the women were silent, he praised and glorified Allah and mentioned what Allah is entitled to. He called for blessings on Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, on his angels and on the prophets. In that context, he mentioned what Allah knows and other matters that would be too numerous to mention here. By Allah, I have never heard a speaker before or after him more eloquent in his speech than he was. Then he said, trace back my lineage and consider who I am. Then look back at yourselves and remonstrate with yourselves. Consider whether it is right for you to kill me and to desecrate my inviolability. Am I not the son of the daughter of your prophet, the son of the executor of his will, his wasi and his cousin, the first of the believers in Allah and the man who first believed in what his apostle had brought from his Lord? Was Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada not my uncle? Was not Ja'far, who flies with two wings in heaven, my uncle? Have you not heard the words that circulate among you that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said concerning myself and my brother, these are the two lords of the youths of the inhabitants of heaven? If you believe what I am saying, and it is the truth, for by Allah I have never told a lie since I learned that Allah hated people who told them, and those who opposed him grieved him. If you still regard me as a liar, then there are those among you who, if you ask them, would tell you. Ask Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi, Zayd ibn Arqam, and Anas ibn Malik to tell you that they heard these words from the Apostle of Allah concerning myself and my brother. Is this not sufficient to prevent your shedding my blood? At this point, Ash-Shamr la'inahullah interrupted Abu Abdullah salamullahi alayh, and Habib ibn Mudahir shouted back at him to silence him. Then al-Husayn continued, if you are in doubt about this, do you have the slightest doubt that I am the son of the daughter of your prophet? By Allah, there is no son of a prophet other than me among you, and among the other people from the east to the west. Indeed, I am the son of your prophet. Tell me, are you seeking retribution from me for one of your dead whom I have killed, or for property of yours that I have expropriated, or for a wound that I have inflicted? They did not say anything to him. Then he called out, Shabath ibn Rub'i, Hajjar ibn Abjar, Qais ibn al-Ash'ath, Yazid ibn al-Harith, did you not write, the fruit has ripened, the janab has grown green, and the waters have overflowed? You will come to an army which has been gathered for you, come? They said they did not, and he declared, "Glory be to Allah. By Allah, indeed you did. People, since you dislike me, let me leave you for a place in the land where I may be safe." So Qais ibn al-Ash'ath asked him, "Won't you submit to the authority of your kinsmen? They will always treat you as you would like. Nothing hateful will ever come to you from them." Al-Husayn replied back to him, "You are your brother's brother. Do you want the Bani Hashim to seek vengeance from you for more than the blood of Muslim ibn Aqil? No, by Allah, I will neither give them my hand like a man who has been humiliated, nor will I flee like a slave. Servants of Allah, I take refuge in my Lord and your Lord from your stoning. I take refuge in my Lord and your Lord from every haughty man who does not believe in the day of reckoning." He made his mount kneel and ordered Uqba ibn Sam'an to tie its reins. The Kufans then began to advance towards him.